Hey, what is up YouTube? This is Wally the Wallmeister, and today I want to talk about this piece I read titled, What is the Potential Growth Rate of the U.S. Economy and How Might Policy Affect It? The author, Mr. Jason Furman, went to the Harvard Kennedy School of Government in Cambridge, USA, and published this last year in July in the 52nd volume of Business Economics. I'll post a link of that down in the description below. Much like the title says, Mr. Furman raises and attempts to answer the question, what is the potential growth rate of the U.S. economy and how the Trump administration's policies affect it? As this is a two-part question, there are two parts of the paper. The former uses past data and current projections from notable sources, like the Congressional Bureau Budget Office, to simulate a range of outcomes for future potential growth, and the latter examines a range of specific economic policies the Trump administration might pursue in terms of their impact on the average annual growth rate, both in the short run and over the next decade. First, let's look at the abstract. I thought this was a great summary of the text. It is made up almost entirely of sentences taken directly from the text, and some of the findings are mixed in as well. However, just enough to where reading the paper is not rendered useless. Moving on to introduction, it feels like a rehash of many of what the abstract says. That's a good thing. By itself, it gives a clear understanding of what the paper is trying to accomplish, even mixing in some of the results from the exercises and the area of the Trump administration that will be evaluated. I really like the first part of the body. I've just finished my first statistics class in college, so many of the terms and processes used I was well aware of and how they were used. For the parts I didn't understand, a simple Google search was all I needed to understand what the author was talking about. Not only that, but many of the arguments were supported with figures that probably helped the reader visualize the text, but every source of the text that I found had the figures omitted, but I think I was able to find the figures using Google and the references section down at the bottom of the text. In the second half of the paper, things were based more on speculation rather than facts, and this made me not as engaged. At times, it feels like the true purpose of the article was to put forth on the negative effects that will come with the Trump administration, and the positives just came up from doing your research. When the author makes a remark about his research and how that might be wrong due to trying to predict the future, it's always saying the reality will be worse than what is predicted. On top of that, there are a few areas that I wish were expanded upon. Throughout the sections of the Trump administration, it is stated that many statements released by the administration are contradictory to each other, but there are no examples put forth. For example, when talking about the Better Way tax plan, the author says the plan leaves many details unspecified, and the details that are specified do not support the claims of the plan's authors that it's revenue neutral. Okay, I'm not interested in politics. I don't know what this Better Way tax plan is, although Mr. Furman does give a good short description of it. I still don't know what any of the details he's referring to is. At this point, his argument changes for me from logos to ethos, as I have to just take his word for it. However, in the end, much more time is spent on the second section of the paper, and this is a big downside for me. I really like the facts and methodology put forth in the first section of the paper versus the speculation used in the second. First conclusion, he states, looking at the numbers from past years, the potential growth rate is positive, ranging from 0.7 to 0.3% for the next 10 years. When it comes to Trump administration, Mr. Furman claims the overall impact will either be zero or slightly negative. I do like, however, how Mr. Furman does state the paper does not attempt to evaluate the overall desirability of President Trump's economic policies, but the paper is only looking at the growth effects due to such policies. All in all, this is a very solid paper and trying to do something very hard, that is, predict the future. When I first started this, I wanted to compare it to what has occurred in 1 year's time since its publication, but seeing as these projections are based for a decade, I see now that it would not be fair to judge it after only 1 year's time. A better time to evaluate this is at the end of Trump's administration to truly see what policies were put in place and how they affected our economic growth. But overall, I enjoyed reading this paper. On a side note, during the beginning of the second section, Mr. Furman writes Tramp instead of Trump multiple times. Don't know if this is on purpose or autocorrect's fault, but it leaves the impression from there on that he just doesn't care for President Trump. But that's just a nitpick, and probably wrong anyways. But whatever, thank you, and I'll see you next time. This is Wally the Wallmeister signing off.